Good morning. I am Dr. M. Vedaraj, Associate Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, RMD Engineering College. Now we are going to see Introduction to UML. What is UML? UML is the Unified Modeling Language. What is Unified Modeling Language? The Unified Modeling Language, it was developed in 1994 to 1995 by James Rambo, Jacobson and Booch at the Rational Software. In 1997, it got adopted as a standard by the Object Management Group OMG. Very important thing is in UML, it is a generalized modeling language. Students, please understand it's completely different from other programming languages like C++, Java, Python, etc. It is interrelated to object-oriented analysis and design. It is mainly used to visualize the workflow of the system. Right? It is a pictorial language. It is not a programming language, students. It is a pictorial language used to generate the powerful modeling artifact. It's very important point is the UML, it's completely different from implementation language. It is completely a designing language. Okay, it is used for specifying, visualizing, constructing and documenting the primary artifact of the software system. So what is UML? UML is specifying, visualizing, constructing and documenting the software system. It is different from implementation language, or we can say it is the independent of the implementation language. Okay, then what are the different types of UML diagram? See, basically UML diagram can be classified into two types. One is the static UML diagram, another one is the dynamic UML diagram. The static UML diagram is also called as the structural UML diagram. Okay, the dynamic views or dynamic UML diagram, otherwise called as behavioral UML diagram. Now we are going to see what is static view and what is dynamic view. Okay, the static view emphasizes the static structure of the system using objects, attributes, operation and relationship. It includes the class diagram and composite structural diagram. Okay, so structural view or the static view represent the static structure of the system using object, attributes, operation and relationship. So what do you mean by the dynamic view? What are behavioral view? It emphasizes the dynamic behavior of the system by showing the collaboration among the object, changes to the internal state of the object. Okay, this view, particularly the behavioral view or dynamic view, includes sequence diagram, activity diagram and state machine diagram. This is the example of dynamic UML diagram: sequence diagram, activity diagram and state machine diagram. Again, I tell you, in UML there are two types of UML diagram. One is the structural UML diagram. It shows the static structure of the system using object, attributes, operation and relationship. The second type is the behavioral view or dynamic view. It emphasizes the dynamic behavior of the system by showing the collaboration among the objects and changes to the internal state of the object. In UML 2.2, the UML 2.2 version, there are 14 types of UML diagram, which are divided into two categories. The 7 diagrams types represent the structural information. Another 7 represent the general UML diagram types for behavioral modeling, including 4 that represent the different aspect of interaction. See, I tell you the examples of structural diagram. The structural diagram examples are deployment diagram, package diagram, class diagram, object diagram and component diagram. The example of behavioral diagram or the dynamic view, activity diagram, use case diagram, state machine diagram, sequence diagram, communication diagram and timing diagram. These are the examples of behavioral diagram. Okay, so UML diagram can be divided into two types: static views, that is called as the structural diagram, dynamic view, that is called as the behavioral diagram. The examples of static diagram: package diagram, class diagram, object diagram, component diagram. The behavioral diagram examples: activity diagram, use case diagram, state machine diagram, sequence diagram, communication diagram. Okay, these are the various UML diagram: use case diagram, class diagram, package diagram. Interaction diagram basically classified into two types: sequence diagram, collaboration diagram, activity diagram, state transition diagram, and deployment diagram. Sorry. Now, what do you mean by class diagram? Class diagram is the example of static view. Okay, because a class diagram represents the static structure of the system. Alright, so the main purpose of the class diagram is it shows the relationship between classes, object, attributes, and operation. Right, so mainly it is used for analysis and design of static view of application. Okay, it is the base for component and deployment diagram. This is very important point, student. The class diagram is the base for component and deployment diagram. This is the example of class diagram. See, every class is represented in UML as the rectangle box. Every class notation is divided into three compartments. The first compartment is the name of the class. The second compartment is called as the attributes of the class. Third compartment is called as the method of the class. For example, passport administrator is the name of the class. Username and password is the attributes, that is data value of the class. Login, verify, update are called as the member function or methods of the class. Okay, all the classes interconnected. Then this is the use case diagram. Okay, see, the use case diagram is the example of behavioral diagram. Student, please understand, this comes under the categories of behavioral diagram, that is dynamic view. Okay, what is use case diagram? The use case diagram is mainly used to represent how the user can interact with the system. This is very important. How the user can interact with the system, how the applicant interact with the system, how the police can interact with the passport automation system. What is the role of passport administrator? What is the role of regional administrator? See, it's mainly used to how the user can interact with the system. It's very important how the user can interact with the system. Okay, how the user can interact with the system. Okay, this is comes under the categories of behavioral diagram. We will discuss later. Okay, interaction diagram. The interaction diagram also comes under the behavioral diagram. There are two types of interaction diagram. See, what do you mean by interaction diagram? Interaction diagram show the interactive behavior of the system, how the system can interact. There are two different types of interaction diagram. One is the sequence diagram, another one is the collaboration diagram. See, what is the difference between sequence diagram and collaboration diagram? See, the collaboration diagram is also called as the communication diagram. Okay, now we are going to see what is the difference between sequence diagram and collaboration diagram. See, in sequence diagram, it simply shows the interactive between object in a sequential order. Okay, the interaction is happened in sequential order. See, the collaboration diagram shows the object and its relationship involved in an interaction. Okay, this is the difference. Sequence diagram, the interaction between object in a sequential order. The collaboration diagram, object and its relationship involved in interaction. Okay, next very important thing is sequence diagram. Okay, sequence diagram format is fence format. What do you mean by fence format? Okay, it uses the fence format. Fence format is nothing but every object is added to the every new object is added to the right hand side of the existing object. Okay, this is called as the fence format. Collaboration format, collaboration diagram uses the network or graph format. See, here the object can be placed anywhere. Okay, that is called as the graph format. This is the difference between the sequence diagram and collaboration diagram. Sequence diagram uses the fence format. The collaboration diagram uses the network or graph format. See, this is the example of sequence diagram. See, the student database, student is one object. Database is one object. How the student can interact with the database object. Okay, this is the simple example of sequence diagram. See, interaction between object in sequential order. First, the student enter the user ID, then the password, then the login status written by the database. Okay, this is the complete example of the sequence diagram. Okay, here the customer, system, and bank. How it show the interaction between object in sequential order. Okay. Next, this is the example of collaboration diagram. See, the collaboration diagram uses the network graph format. The object can be placed anywhere. Okay. See, the borrower, librarian, and system. See, a collaboration diagram is mainly used to show object and its relationship. What is the relationship between the borrower object and librarian? What is the relationship between system and librarian? Okay, it shows the relationship between object. Okay, this is the other name for collaboration diagram is also called as the communication diagram. Okay, next diagram is called as the activity diagram. This activity diagram is also comes under the categories of dynamic view, that is behavioral diagram. Okay, activity diagram means what? It's a flow chart to represent the flow from one activity to another activity. It's mainly used to describe the dynamic aspect of the system. This is very important because the activity diagram comes under the categories of dynamic view. Okay, activity diagram represent the flow from one activity to another activity. It simply show the flow. That's all. Flow of activity, flow from one activity to another activity. That's all. Okay. The next one is, this is the example of activity diagram. See, it show only the flow. First the login, then submit the details, then get the details, then verification. If the verification is successful, the passport is issued. Otherwise, the penalty as per the law. Okay. It show only, it's focusing only on the flow of activity. That's all. Okay, state machine diagram. See, the state machine diagram is also comes under the categories of behavioral diagram. Okay, state machine diagram represent only what is the event and state of the object. What is event? What is the action performed? That is called as the event. What is the state? The condition of object is called as the state. What is the current condition of object? That is called as the state of the object. So state machine diagram or state machine model represent the event and state of the object. The main purpose of state machine diagram, it show the life cycle of object. What is the state of the object? Okay, it is the one of the example of behavioral UML diagram. Okay, so event is nothing but what? The action. The customer insert a ATM card. This is the example of event. What do you mean by state? What is the condition of object at a particular moment of time? For example, after entering the PIN number, okay, the user has to wait. Okay, so waiting for user to enter a PIN number, this is the state. State is nothing but what is the condition of the object. Okay, once the PIN number is validated, then the user can withdraw a amount or deposit a amount. Okay, the state is nothing but what is the current condition of object at a particular moment of time. Okay, transition. This is the third component of state machine diagram. Transition is nothing but what is the relationship between the two states. Okay, the relationship between the two state, the connection between the two state is represented by the transition. Okay, so this is the example. See, the login is the one, then give the details, then get details, verification, issue. This is the example of state diagram. Okay, next one is, this is also one of the example of state machine diagram. We will discuss later briefly what is state diagram, when we should use state machine diagram. We will discuss later. Now we are seeing only the introduction about the UML and what are the various types of UML diagram. Then the deployment diagram. See, the deployment diagram comes under the categories of which category? Anyone tell me what is it? It comes under the structural diagram or behavioral diagram. Yes, it's completely completely it comes under the structural diagram. Deployment diagram is the example of structural diagram. Okay, it represents the physical architecture of the system. What is the hardware components? What is the software component? What is the connection between the component? That's all. See, the deployment diagram is only for what is the hardware component. The hardware components are called as the node. What is the software components? The software components is called as the artifact. Artifact is nothing but the that is run on each node. The software which is run on a node is called as the artifact. Okay, what is the connection between the various components? The connection between the components is called as the JDBC. Okay, example is called as JDBC. So deployment diagram is completely shows the physical architecture of the system. What is the various hardware component? What is the various software component? What is the connection between the component? Okay, so this is the example of deployment diagram. Next diagram is the component diagram. See students, the component diagram is also comes under the categories of structural UML. It is used to organize a relationship among the component. What is the relationship among the component? It shows only the component relationship. See the example, how the component can be represented in UML. This is the notation for component. What is the relationship between the component? It shows only the relationship between the component. The last diagram is called as the UML package diagram. See, the UML package diagram is completely comes under the categories of, anyone tell me which category? Yes, structural diagram. Okay, UML package diagram comes under the structural UML diagram. It's mainly used to represent the logical architecture of the system. Okay, everyone know what do you mean by package. Package means what? Package means group of classes, group of similar classes, group of sub packages. Okay, using UML package diagram, the elements of the system can be grouped together. Okay, the package can be nested. Yes, package can be nested. That means one package may contain another package. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. If the package has some inner member, then its name must be shown on a tab. This is the rule. Okay, so package diagram is used to represent the logical architecture of the system. Okay, so package diagram show the logical architecture of the system. This is the example of the package diagram. It consists of 3 layers: user interface layer, domain layer, and technical service layer. Okay, so thank you students. We will discuss later.